It's got to be relevant to you individually, specifically right now, or relevant generally enough so you can work with this and explore it in a way that's meaningful and matches how you want to shop. Now, can I make that better if I have a bit more personalized information? Sometimes no, sometimes yes.
Hello and welcome to the Retail Podcast. Now, I remember giving a talk on this subject. We were expressing our frustrations in the e-commerce world between how difficult can it be to get this right. And when I came across who we're going to meet in a minute, Foundit, I thought it'd be super interesting to at least let's listen to someone who is solving this problem and look at, have we got it wrong? Is there things that we should be doing that we're not doing? And Warren, before we get into what the problem is, obviously your CEO found, maybe the giveaway is in the title. Your CEO.
Well, I don't say founder sometimes because you found it. Too much alliteration for people to handle sometimes. It's just...
Yeah, luckily I should be able to cope. So CEO and founder of Foundit. So why don't you tell us how you got to Foundit before we dive into what the problem is and how you guys solve it?
Yeah, because it was funny you said how difficult things are. Why are they still so difficult? There's problems that I've been seeing for 15 years that everyone's been expecting to just disappear. And I still see them every day. If I just sort of give you maybe a potted history, I spent 20 years running an agency, a digital marketing agency. Halfway through that journey, we decided, I think sites would be a lot better if we built them the way we intended to use them rather than just standing them up out of the box. So we ended up becoming systems integrator and started building e-commerce sites on Hybris and Salesforce, Demand, whereas it was back then, and different platforms. And so we started to get much more into depth with trading operations and what it was like to actually run, manage, and actually sell online, and help a business actually trade. And then into sort of the background of that, we were developing a lot of technology to try and automate things, try to understand what it was customers were looking for, how that might feed into insight analytics. We were working with a company called Maplin. You're probably aware of Maplin. I'm sure some of your viewers will remember them fondly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the earlier generation. I know Maplin disappeared from the high street and then resurfaced it under a new brand. So this is pretty that sort of, say anything that might relate to the current team and its business. But the CEO at the time, he was very close to customers, and he would get their emails. He would read customer emails. Customers sometimes email him directly. Don't know how they got his email, but people would. He'd always listen to that, and he'd read the exit survey data. And the thing he would always hear the most, other than it's too expensive or stop asking me feedback information, was always, I can't find what I'm looking for on the site. And that seemed to be like the biggest frustration point. And that's kind of was also like an epiphany moment. I spent a lot of time trying to help people get their websites found on Google. So when people were searching on Google, they could, or whatever it was they were using, would find the website. And I said, this is a problem on the site as well. And it was kind of a sort of a milestone, if you like, growing of awareness that it is hard. It is kind of clunky. And we've been doing this for ages. You think e-commerce would have moved on since the interface of e-commerce has kind of been the same way since about 2006. And we've got the search bar, the grids, the facets. It's kind of that structure. I mean, it's a good structure. Everyone understands it. It's logical, but it's quite difficult to navigate and search and browse. And as retailers get bigger and bigger, add more products, the sites just become harder to navigate, harder to browse. It becomes harder to find what you want.
I think somewhere you said that shopping has become boring and uninspiring in your experience. What do you think the one reason for that is? And what's the trap that retailers fall into?
Maybe I'll frame it in some feedback I actually got from an e-commerce director. And this was ironically, this was their experience of them shopping on their own website. And she said, I spent an hour on the site, came away empty-handed, only wanted a pot of paint. And she was talking about her own website. And you think, wow. And there is this common theme and thread where I think we all know it's hard. We all know it's difficult. We all know it's frustrating. And people seem just powerless to do anything about it. And I think, if you look at what's happened in terms of the evolution of the customer and the evolution of e-commerce, they've moved at very different paces and speeds in different ways. So if you look at the customer nowadays, customers want everything to work like Netflix. Right? I sit down, my telly can sort of understand what I want, work out how to, give me the things that I want. Facebook, Amazon, these everyday platforms have almost dictated the way today's shoppers expect to have their experience delivered. So they become the time poor. They're impatient. They're more likely to be on Insta or Google looking for a product and then discover a retailer than they are to be on a retailer and then discover a product. So all these changes are happening. And you look at retail websites and what have we been doing in e-commerce for the last 10, 15 years? And it's really, what we've been doing is focusing on acquisition and traffic supremacy and increasing range size, range expansion. Let's go marketplace. Let's add more products. Let's add new categories. Let's make it bigger and bigger and bigger under the hood. But fundamentally, that experience isn't really changing. And so you have customers now coming into retail websites. They've landed on Google. They land on the product page, and they're going, kind of interesting. I was like, I kind of want something like that, but I don't think I want to try and decode your site at the moment, work out how it works. I'll go back to Google. It's just easier to do that. So the path of least resistance for customers being able to find and discover on platforms that aren't retailers is actually far exceeded their ability to do it on retail websites. So when they're on sites, it's all kind of transactional. There's the mega, there's your category. We've got 2,000 sandals. Do you want black ones? Do you want gold ones? Do you want strappy ones? I'm going on holiday and I want something nice to step out. Can you help me? And that's not really how websites work, unless you have merchandisers and they kind of perceive these things and they create edits. But that bandwidth's always really, really limited. So consequently, sites just feel a bit sort of transactional, bland, functional, and overwhelming. A thousand pairs of sandals. Or sometimes you go onto a website and you're just trying to buy a headphone stand or a mic, and there's 300 of them. There's mic over here.
Yeah.
I can't deal with 300 mics to choose. Breakdown, and I'm not an expert shopper, maybe in this particular category. You've got to help me. It's like, well, do you want to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not an exciting, it's not an enjoyable experience. So you have these customers that are coming into websites, and it's just like, it's easy to go somewhere else, and that's where we are now with e-commerce. And what retailers are seeing is that they've grown their range, but all they've done really is just create an overwhelming experience that the customers just increasingly bewildered by, and it's harder for them to navigate. It doesn't really differentiate because everyone's selling the same stuff. Everyone's doing next day delivery or whatever.
Yeah.
And the customers doesn't really have the patience to wade through, endless aisles. I would call endless aisle being batted around a lot in e-commerce. Endless aisle, it can go on forever. And, it's great. It's a really good thing. It's an endless aisle. Customers can spend ages browsing product, but that's really, really bad because it's an endless aisle and customers can spend ages browsing product. The weakness is in the strength, ironically. So customers are seeing that, okay, maybe they're selling more. Retailers are saying now they're selling more, but they're actually converting fewer and fewer customers because customers are less willing to muddle through, less willing to deep dive and try to work out how to decipher the search. What do I type into the search engine to make it work? Where did you put that? Phil, what do you call it? What should I call it? How should I try and find these things? And it's not an inspiring experience. And that's what customers are feeding back. And that's why this conversion is falling off.
Yeah, I can imagine that so many businesses have invested so much in building categories and getting more products. But what that leads to is having thousands of dark aisles within your e-commerce site with invisible products that basically get buried in search, right? And I can imagine that.
Never gets seen.
Say again?
It never gets seen.
Yeah, it never gets seen, which has an impact. In the middle of dark aisles, do you have any examples where retailers have sort of converted that into an opportunity?
Yeah, so the challenge with dark aisles is that they're dark because there's typically too much to consume.
Yeah,
right?
So I guess this sort of falls off page one of search, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I'll give you an example. Working with the retailer at the moment, they sell 14,000 wallpapers.
Right.
Now, on the one hand, that's brilliant. That's a huge range of wallpapers. But also, that's a huge range of wallpapers. Where do you start? You've got to. You can't consume that amount of information. and you certainly don't want to be browsing endlessly through things. You've got to be able to get down. And I think this is really where, focusing on customer intent, which is really what Foundit's about, it comes to the fore, because you don't need to let your customer muddle through and work out how they're going to find what they want, because you can understand those needs of customers. You can bring that to the front and then go, well, let me create the explorational experience that I think you want to help you navigate and browse, explore this category. Get, as one of our customers would say, get down to find the right product in the noise of 10,000.
Yeah.
That's really the job. That really is the job. How do you find that one thing when you're standing, you're on the tip of the iceberg and it's under there somewhere, but what are you going to do? You're going to hunt for the right filter, paginate through to page 11, and you still won't have even scratched the surface. You'll go to search. You won't quite know what word to put. You'll type something like cottage core. You think, that feels like the trend that I think I'm after. I got no results. What do I type now? What do I need to call it? And this is cognitive energy, right? Yeah. And this is what is exhausting the customer. And they go, oh, screw it, I'll go to Pinterest and we'll look at room designs, or I'll go to Google and I'll type it something in, and Google will explore it for me. So when you think about dark aisles, the people that are turning those into an opportunity are the people that are working out, how do I get the customer from the top of the tree where it's overwhelming and unconsumable down to a really well-honed, curated collection of products that engages and interests them without them having to make.
Yeah, in physical retail, that's one of the major successes behind Aldi and Lidl, that they take decision fatigue out of the equation, where you go to any of the other major supermarkets, you're just struck with 15 variants of tomato ketchup when you only want tomato ketchup. So you only need 2 or 3 things. So decision fatigue is a real thing, and retailers like Aldi and Lidl have used it to global expansion and winning. So it's definitely something that wins. And I think there'll be a generation of people who go, what, you used to have catalogs? And so, in the early days, I remember, anyone Argos
catalog.
The Argos catalog. So
what, my I'd always love going, because we had the Argos catalog at home. It would be like a book. It's like it was a magazine, really.
I think that's
wasn't it?
A disservice, a book. I think
it was a great magazine. You sit there and I used to love going over to my auntie's in Romford, because my auntie, they had an Argos Superstore up their way, and so she had the Argos Superstore catalog, which was like Argos catalog on steroids, and that was like, I'm just going to find the couch and just go and digest it.
If we're going to be really nerdy, I used to love looking at the hi-fi equipment.
I was
just spent hours looking at the tape recorders.
Or the boom box. It's got 2 graphic equalizer.
I'm alienating my audience. We should stop.
But for me, I used to fish, so I would always remember looking straight to find the fishing tackle, which was up to the golf clubs, and just before some other sporting equipment. So that was my memory of. I've got that section of the Argos catalog memorized.
I mean, going back to this talk that I gave. So one of the things that I did on Amazon, I looked for a Canon camera, and then I put to this talk the backdrop. I don't know if you've ever seen Interstellar, the movie, where they land on the planet, and it's a beautiful piece of music that actually sort of encompasses the planet's problem, which I'll get the maths wrong, but something like every 7 seconds on that planet was equivalent to 1 day on planet Earth, or something like that, right? So this planet was, you spend 7 minutes, or maybe 7 minutes equate to 1. And what I was telling the e-commerce leaders at that point 6 years ago is people's attention spans is like this. The more they are fatigued on your website, the more time that they feel. So 7 minutes for them on your website is 14 minutes of their real time. And you need to sort of think about it in that way. And unfortunately,
if it's 7 minutes of being engrossed in, this is it, I could spend all day.
Yeah, but that's inspiration, right?
Yeah, or is it 7 minutes of, no, that didn't work. Yeah, but oh my God, no, wrong filter. Where do I find that? What do you
filters? Then you filter. And, you've still got these massive retailers with that catalog mentality. They've just taken this wedge of product and put it online. That's it. That's all they've done. So how do you get customers? And I know AI is going to change this because they're going to be so petrified of being left out, right? And just being, well, anyway, how do you get retailers to embrace customer intent led e-commerce?
Well, I think they're gradually realizing it. I think for a long time, the way that you would deal with the fact that you've got this diminishing return of attention and it's impacting your bottom line was that you'd sweat the funnel. Right? That was always how it would work. You buy more traffic, do more promos, maybe we discount if we're really off forecast or something like that. But you're getting to the point now where there's no more traffic to buy. I can't buy another profitable click if I wanted to. And well, I think we're a bit promoed out now. If we discount anymore, we're giving the stuff away. So it's like, what else is there? And so retailers are now coming round to the idea of we need to fix the experience. The experience is going to be our differentiator. And so they're looking for ways that, well, how do we make the experience easier for the customer? How do we get more customers to the right products sooner in the journey with less effort and fewer clicks? That's more and more of customers are coming around to that. Where I think a lot of them may be still struggling is that their businesses aren't organized around customers. They're organized around catalogs. Everything's organized around catalogs. Like you were just saying, you stand up the catalog. Templates generate the thing out of the box. The product database feeds the information in. It's cookie cuts, templated. This person manages that category. This person manages that part of the catalog. This person manages this part of the tech stack that goes in the catalog. And I think what we're seeing, and this is what the retailers that are really winning out and driving forward in this kind of domain, they're realizing it's got to be about the customer, not the catalog. And you've got to try and adjust or steel thread that idea of what the customer's trying to do, that mission, what they're trying to achieve, and try and steel thread that through all the different processes, operations, tech stacks, teams, templates to try and hook it up. It's got to be about the customer.
Yeah. And
so some people are still stuck in that. Well, I got a team that manages PLP, someone manages database, someone's on PDP. He drives traffic in. They merge that. They organise this, and no one's sitting there going, well, what does a customer come in and want to do? What are they trying to achieve? And actually, that mission of theirs, that's going to take them all across all these different touch points in lots of different directions. And so we actually need to be threading all of that together around what the customer wants, not what we want to push, promote, organise. That's the shift in the mentality. The people that are winning are doing that very well and are quite far ahead.
So where do you see intent-led e-commerce over the next 5 years? Because obviously we've got to mention AI, and AI is going to take a part in this.
AI is going to play a part. I mean, on the one hand, you saw Google launched their AI mode, or when they went all in on their AI mode a couple of months ago, and they kind of forecast a world. Take it to its extreme. It was like this idea of shops. That's all going. You're going to work with AI agents, and they're going to put it in the basket. It's almost going to be like take it to some dystopian extreme. It's going to end up like dark kitchens. It's just going to be Uber Eats drivers showing up to pick up the delivery orders at the checkout and just bring them back. And this whole merchandised, categorized browsing experience, that's all gone. I don't think that's going to happen. I think AI will help a lot of it. AI will help educate customers so they don't have to get frustrated trying to work out how to use retail sites. But I think the sites that are going to win out are going to be the ones that bring AI in to help automate, orchestrate, and enrich all of this information in their business. We went to Shoptalk, everyone was talking about AI. The number of people that just slapped AI in front of things, or just going, we need to use more AI. And I think a lot of the time, take AI, call it machine learning. It was that before. Go back a few years, it was big data. Go back a few years, it was analytics. It's always something that's going to come in and change everything. The thing that was always missing, digital transformation, that's what was before. It was always, well, what are you trying to do? What's the operation? What's the process? What's the goal that you're trying to achieve? How do you bring AI in to do that? And I don't think a lot of the retailers that we've looked at know exactly what that process is that they are trying to augment with AI.
Yeah.
You've got to try and work out what's the perfect experience. You've almost got to work it backwards. What's the ideal experience we're trying to put to the customer? Have we got the assets, the infrastructure, the operations to deliver it? Can AI help us put any of those in place? And a lot of people haven't worked that back to what they want AI to do for them or for their customers. And that's really where intent again comes into the fore, and where AI has helped us is because AI helps you distill and orchestrate things at scale a lot better than you could do before. If you're a retailer with a manual merchandising team, doing swivel chair and typing this over here, typing this into that system, moving data, enriching it. They say retail's detail, and it absolutely still is. So you've got to do dozens of things across a million points to make it work for all the customers. And it's that AI angle that really helps a good operation done intelligently, done for the customer scale.
Yeah, we've not got into training data and how much of your data do you want somebody else to have? Because companies like Perplexity are definitely, I think, trying to circumvent retailers and just provide, they'll be happy with the product catalog and let people do sort of search-based discovery as opposed to product-based discovery. But that, which leads into personalization. And, personalization is often cited as sort of being the key and the future of e-commerce. I'm just wondering which sort of leads to the customer loyalty. I'm just wondering what's Foundit's approach to personalization to improve the customer loyalty.
So I've got a slightly heretical view on personalization, which I'll share. But I think I don't like to dive into personalization as much. And I use one of my customers' references for this. He was asked about what are you doing to personalize the site. He says, I don't look at it as personalization. I look at it as relevance. So I'm parroting him slightly. It's got to be relevant. Okay? Yeah. Relevant to you individually, specifically right now, or relevant generally enough so you can work with this and explore it in a way that's meaningful and matches how you want to shop. Now, can I make that better if I have a bit more personalized information? Sometimes no, sometimes yes. And so personalization kind of is one of these things that sort of sits underneath this, and for me at least, this ambition of trying to create a relevant experience for the customer. And this is where I guess my heretical view comes in, is that I don't think you need personalized information to understand the customer intent that's moving through a particular category. You don't need to get a lot of the time, because personalization works incredibly well when you've got repeat, committed, engaged customers that have bought from you before. They're back for their third, fourth visit. Now they're looking at this. They spent 15 minutes on site. Looked at it. You've got a wealth of data. The problem is that actually that's less than 5% of all the people that are on your site. 80% of people showing up on your site you've seen for the first time on any given day. They've been on your page they've been on your site for 30 seconds. They looked at 3 pages. What do you know, right? You have this cold start with 2% of the customers buy, but 98% don't, and you've got no good information to go on any of them. And so the necessity for retailers is to be able to deliver this almost prescient. We knew you were coming, and this is kind of we understood what you wanted, and we laid the place out for you, kind of experience without having personalized information. That's really what we want retailers to be able to do. Now, if you get useful information that says, well, they've looked at these 10 things, that now you've got some additional information, and you can start to create a more colorful experience on top of that once you've got it. But the real challenge you've got is the 98% of people that are arriving at your website that you can't create a perfect predictive experience for, and you need to show them that you understand what it is that they're looking for, how they want to shop, and you've structured the website for that particular purpose, almost like a magician. So, is that the cards you're thinking of? Or was that? Yeah, there you go. Great. They're over here. And when you do that, the user feels empowered, and you don't have to help the person. You don't have to predict the perfect product that they want. You just have to help them find the right product, get there, and let them make their own choice. And when you do that, they become much more loyal, much more empowered, much more engaged customer. So I guess when you think about intent versus personalization. It's not an if or an or. They're just serving different ends of the spectrum of trying to create a more relevant experience. So for example, we'll do a lot of product enrichment, for example, and we'll look at a dress, for example, and they call it a long dress. Okay, but it's also full length, but that's not going to tell you that in the data, and no customer data is going to tell you that some people call that full length, some people call that floor length, some people call that a long dress. So you don't pick up the aggregate or the accumulation of the rich customer intent, the way customers relate to products, what they call things, until you actually step back and aggregate all information from all users about what something is, how it might be used, what they're trying to do, what problem it solves for them. You don't get that from personal data. You get that from looking at sort of the wisdom of the crowd, or almost looking at how does everyone come through here, call it something, go somewhere else. It's those sorts of patterns that really start to tell you what it is that people are trying to do.
What do you think is one of the first outcomes your customers get when they sort of start working with you? What's the one thing that sort of you see them? Obviously, you expect better, but what's an outcome? What would an outcome be for them?
Well, I suppose if I look at the impact, I think is that where you're leaning into?
Well, the impact, or I'm just curious, over the years when you've been working with your key customers, you go back and say, and obviously thank you for your business, thanks for taking it. How are you finding it? And then they'll say, oh, I'm curious what this is, right? What if you were going to sort of peel back the layers? What is that outcome that they're getting? And it could be as simple as it was chaos, and now we've got a bit of a handle on something that we had no handle on.
Yeah, so typically, our customers are tracking a lot of stuff. So, they see it in the metrics. They go, people are adding product to basket a lot more often now, actually.
Okay.
Quicker. It's taking a lot less time to do this. So we were working with a large US retailer, luxury retailer, Neiman Marcus, and they actually were doing this sort of visual navigation at the top of their pages, which is one of the products that Foundit incorporated into our customer sites, but they were building it all manually. So they would have their merchandising team, they look at data, they sit down, they crunch Excel, and they speak to the design team, they get some images, that creates an array of options. They go put it into a content management system, so they get this nice kind of hero visual navigational thing at the top that should help the customers navigate to what it is, what's popular more easily, or what's trending. But it was killing them. It was taking away all of the time that they had for anything strategic, anything customer focused, and they were almost 40% of their week was going on keeping up this manual navigation, and it was only on their top 400 pages. So they were really excited about the prospect of, can something just do this? If you boil it down, all I'm talking about really is good merchandising, listening to the customer, preempting the customer, getting ahead of them, doing the right thing for them, making it easy, laying it out the way they expect. But this is all happening in organizations. So one of the biggest impacts that they saw was this, I can just leave this. I can go back and do something, and this works. And this will be taken care of. When a new range comes in, or a new trend goes off, or suddenly this is very important, or we've got a program, it will just keep going. Yeah, and that is it's like, oh wow, we just got a week back, guys, and that's like that gets felt internally very, very quickly. Beyond that, it's metric based. So actually, there's a lot more customers now that are adding to cart. Before we had a really low add to cart rate, and we saw a lot of struggle. There was a high bounce rate. People left the category after a certain amount of time. There's an exit rate that we could time. All those seem to be going in different directions. More people are adding to basket. We're seeing the bounce rate come down. We're seeing time spent in the category go up. We're seeing more of that number of items viewed. People are seeing more things, more products actually getting seen. Coming back to the dark aisle point that you were talking about before, one of the metrics one of our customers was tracking was how much more of our product category is being seen and exposed than it was before. Actually, suddenly we grew our range, and it was no one was seeing it, but now they're seeing it, and so actually they're getting some security from diversifying their audience across more of their range, selling more things, and that means that when it comes to as they advance their trading period, they're not suddenly finding that loads of stuff didn't sell, and they've still got loads of stock from things that because they never got seen, right? So there's some of the discounting pressure is coming off of them as well. So you can tell that the customers are getting a better experience. You can tell that the merchandising team is finding that they've got more time on their hands and more ability to do other things. More of their job is automated, and some of that worry or pressure that they might have felt to discount is kind of diminished a little bit because more things are getting sold in more facets of the category. So there's benefits all across the spectrum, really, from doing this. But what sometimes is interesting is where you hear different applications of that you didn't intend to have. So, for example, we would create these visual navigations across PLP categories. You go into locks, for example. This is a DIY company, sort of a homewares company, and they'd have their locks page. And we broke them. They had the way they broke down locks, but we had the way that customers broke down locks, and we turned that into just quite a mundane category. But if you need to buy a lock and you're not quite sure, you need to have it broken down in the way that you want to try and explore the category. And so we created all these navigational arrays, and we'd optimized product data, we enriched everything. Of course, the customers were getting better, but then what they said was that their call center execs, the new call center execs, when customers called in and they wanted guidance or explanation through a particular category, the call center execs were using the intent-based navigation that was being essentially fed by customer demands and trends. And they were able to sound like product experts all of a sudden, even though they didn't understand. And I've been doing this for years. I've become such a product expert in so many categories that I would never. What I can tell you about embellished sandals, or locks, or perfumes and fragrances, just by understanding how customers try to relate to this stuff. So their call center execs were getting savvier, quicker, helping customers on the phone better because they were using the prompts from the navigation to basically talk to the customer about, do you want something like this? Do you want something like that? This breaks down like this. Do you want a silver one? Do you want a double one? And it was almost guiding customer service people as well. So but we see the benefits across the whole org, and sometimes in some really novel areas too.
That's fantastic. Look, Warren, it's been an absolute pleasure. Time has flown by. So thank you so much for giving up some time to be with us today.
Thanks, Alex.
And I look forward to you were at Shoptalk, you said, right?
We were at Shoptalk.
Everyone
was talking about AI.
Yeah. Are you doing any other conferences for the rest of the year?
So we're hoping to make an appearance at Shoptalk in Chicago in the autumn, and full. And I'm going to try. Don't need many excuses to go to Paris.
Yeah.
So we might try and go to NRF2. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be a tough one, I think, because they're both at the same time, right? One day apart.
We're definitely going to be tag teaming, I think.
16th to the 18th in Paris, and Shoptalk 17th to the 19th in Chicago. Well, I may see you at one of them.
We'll circle back and check.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Warren.
Thanks, Alex. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.